Well, tuberculosis is definitely not a thing of the past. It's still with us. Whereas there has been some progress as regards normal TB, so the regular TB, the incidence has slowly gone down. This is not the case with the drug-resistant TB. And there is a very worrying trend. It seems that the incidence of this form of TB is actually on the increase, particularly, it's a very uneven picture, but particularly in some parts of Europe, not to mention the rest of the world, of course. There are many dimensions to it. First of all, we have a general problem with resistance to antibiotics in general. The fact is that it's becoming more and more difficult to develop new drugs, and also there's been a lot of misuse, wrong use of existing drugs. And this is certainly true for TB. And second point is that TB is also not just a medical or health problem, it's also very often has strong social links. And there has been to some extent a failure of policies. We see particular problems in certain vulnerable parts of the population. And that, of course, creates pockets where this disease and varieties of this disease can continue to spread and flourish. And this aspect, I think, should worry us all, because we need to find a better integration between our health policy, our social policy, and our scientific research. Well, we need to have a more holistic strategy. You cannot deal with diseases such as TB and other big diseases, I would say the same for HIV or hepatitis, and these are often incidentally very closely related to each other. If we do not have a holistic strategy, we need to talk about, first of all, what we can do to have a preventive approach, early intervention, social issues, try to create an incentive for industry to invest in new drugs, because very often there is a failure of the business model. Simply, if a company today were to develop a new antibiotic, the first thing the regulator would do is put very severe restrictions on the usage of that antibiotic as a last line of defense, which is understandable from a health perspective, but doesn't create much of an incentive to get the return for the company. So we need to think about a new business model, and we need to invest more heavily in social programs as well, particularly in our outreach to vulnerable sectors of the population. Well, the EU's role in the area of health is to support and, let's say, encourage and facilitate the work of the member states. So what we're doing, for example, we have an action plan on antimicrobial resistance, which will continue to be a priority. I believe we need to develop similar tools for other aspects such as vaccination. And of course, at the moment, we're heavily engaged working with member states as they seek to put their health systems and other aspects, social systems and so on a more sustainable footing. And I think we need to have much better evidence. So one way the EU acts is also to provide evidence, for example, of best practices, and try to facilitate their take-up and scaling up in other parts of the EU. The fact that Europe has been together for over 50 years doesn't mean that this happens automatically. Very often it still needs concrete work and incentives to speed up and ensure that this happens.